up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of StoryHive On Location, Vancouver, with beats, eats, and more. I'm your host, Kazi, and we are broadcasting live right now on the unceded ancestral lands of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations, of whom we give utmost love, respect, and gratitude for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands and these waters. I am also going to give a big shout out to TELUS STORYHIVE for powering today's episode. And now I would like to introduce you to my guest. Tonight on the show, we're joined by Vancouver-based artist who, in life and in music, refuses to pick a lane. By day, Mikey Jose is a neuroscience PhD candidate. By night, he's an independent artist blending R&B, gospel, and pop into something deeply soulful and effortlessly relatable. He lives in the in-between, building bridges between brain and heart, research and rhythm. With over 9 million streams and international radio spins, all independent and pre-debut album, Mikey is already moving globally while staying grounded in story. Inspired by greats like Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Leon Thomas, and Beyoncé, he leads with melody and meaning, giving us B-sides that hit just as hard as the singles. From Vancouver to the world, tonight we tap into the mind and music of Mikey Jose.
Woo! Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm really super stoked that we finally made this happen.
Yeah.
And today I want to have a conversation about not just your music, but your, as we do with many of the guests on the show, 123 interviews to date, in fact. I want to talk about your creative journeys. And I definitely want to talk to you about neuroscience stuff.
Oh,
so
happy to talk about it all.
I'm down to get nerdy.
We're gonna get down and nerdy today.
Yes, with snacks.
With snacks.
So let's start with, do you remember the first moment you realized music wasn't just something you liked, but something you needed and something in you to be expressed?
Yeah, I think I do. I think my mom would have a moment that she says is kind of like she knew that music meant something to me. And I have my own moment. So my mom's moment was apparently, this is before my brain had consciousness in itself. My mom said that my sister at the time was taking piano lessons. She's 5 years older than I am. She was playing some like Ode to Joy or something, Ode to Joy. And then my sister went to the kitchen or went to the bathroom and she heard Ode to Joy being played on the piano. And she's like, wow, Trisha's doing really well. Like she's attending her lessons and she's learning. And then she looks over the piano and it's me. And I'm like, I don't know how old I was, but I was like mimicking what I was hearing apparently. I don't have any memory of this, but my mom was like, you were picking up this song by ear. Given it's like 4 or 5 notes, but I think that was like the start of something, even before I knew it was something. For me personally, I knew that it was something special when I started writing music. I did kind of like the classical training when I was a kid. I went to lessons as a kid, kind of begrudgingly going to piano lessons. And then at some point, I realized that with the same combination of notes that I was playing on the piano, I could create new melodies, I could create new ideas. And there was just like a lot of inspiration from the pieces that I was playing, really simple pieces. And I was just enamored by changing the combination of notes and making new things. And I'm like, that kind of sounds great. So I kept doing that. And that was kind of the spark of using music as a tool to say something. I was pretty, I had both outspoken and shy phases in my life, but I always felt like music was my language to say what was truly in my heart. And I haven't stopped since. It's been a really amazing journey.
How old were you at the time then you first started writing songs?
If we're talking about writing songs as in like very simple words kind of don't make sense, but it's a song, I'd say as early as like 7 or 8.
Wow.
It was real. Again, I might be overstating what a song is. We're operationalizing what a song is in a particular way. But yeah, I was really young and I was just mixing and combining and making silly rhymes. And
That's how you start.
That's how you start. Yeah.
Or and even still, like when it like you just like gibberish make a melody or gibberish make
it's still part of the process.
chorus.
Yeah.
It's part of the process
Yeah.
until words emerge, you know?
Exactly.
That's really dope.
Yeah.
What music then were you surrounded by in your home and growing up? Like what sounds inspired and influenced you?
A lot of soul music, a lot of like pop R&B, a lot of like Bee Gees, a lot of Brian McKnight.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, speaking of Amy's wedding, when the request for that event that we were both a part of was Back at One. And I mean, if anybody knows Brian McKnight's Back at One,
I'm singing it in my mind now.
You like a dream come true. I like it because it's laid out. You know, it's like scientific method. It's like he gave us 5 steps, and we just gotta do the 5 steps and go back to 1. Yeah. Anyway, great song. It's a lot of that, like growing up, and a lot of like Stevie Wonder, like, you know, just like soulful, feel-good music with a lot of like melody-driven things. Also grew up in the church, so a lot of the music we listened to was, you know, were like church hymns. Yeah. And it seems like I found the Venn diagram of the soulful undertones of all these sounds that I listened to growing up. It's kind of informed what I do now, well, obviously with the mixture of like new flavors of R&B and.
Did you grow up in like a Protestant church?
Catholic.
Okay. Yeah.
I still play for mass every Sunday. Oh. So like, you know, I know a lot of my favorite musicians that I had growing up and still do have that church background. And, you know, I think there's something about like the soul and like some kind of spiritual element of music, but also just expressing yourself in such a primitive way that I think really resonated with me and still resonates with me.
I would love to know about when you did start your early beginnings of like really now, like how did you know that you wanted to like create music that wasn't just for church, that wasn't just for you to express yourself, but now it's like stuff that you wanted to create to share with others? Well, when was that?
Yeah, my solo project didn't start until the year before the pandemic. It was in 2019.
Cool.
I was like in my undergrad, and that was the first time that I had decided to like actually put out music that was my own. The project before that, like actually putting my music into the real world, was actually in the format of a musical. I wrote a musical with my sister and my parents when I was in high school.
Okay.
So this was all amidst all of that era, and we used this musical as a tool to raise money for local and global charities. So over the 6 years that we put this musical on, we raised over $250,000 for local and global charities, which was amazing. And it's like one of my proudest things that I still, you know, remember. And
what was the musical about?
It was called Right Here, Right Now. And it was about a group of university students who were graduating and had different stories to tell. And were just like recalling these times in their life that were, you know, like changed, like a pivotal moment that changed them. And one person didn't feel like they had a story to tell until something happens to them in the span of musical. So my sister and I wrote all the songs for this. I was like 15. My sister was 19 or 20. Yeah. And my parents like wrote the script. And that was the first time that we had actually written something that was presented to the public in a real way. So it wasn't necessarily like my personal music, but it was interesting to have the constraints of, this is the story. These are the major points and the plot points of the story. How are we going to channel an emotional moment or feeling in this that actually doesn't make it feel out of place? You know, for musicals, that's not everyone's cup of tea. Yeah. It's mostly because it's like, why are these people singing when they're grieving, or why are these people singing at the coffee shop? You know, like,
this is how I feel about musicals.
Well, you know, and totally fair. It's like, why are you singing? Yeah. So the challenge, why are you singing? So it's like, what the challenge was, how do we create this naturalistic, as much as you can in a musical, approach to injecting real emotions in a plot that elevates the storyline?
Yes.
And that was our first challenge. That was the first time that I was exposed to that kind of challenge. And as soon as I did it, I was hooked.
So your parents are musicians as well, or?
They are not professional musicians. Yeah. My parents, I kind of got the cue from them. We're going to, I guess, talk about like my two worlds, like academia and music informing each other. My parents are, you know, like professionals in different industries. My dad actually works at UBC. And my mom works at BCIT, so a little bit more on the we work in the academic spaces, and my mom's like an IT person.
Very cool.
But they loved music. That was something that I grew up with, and that was injected into my veins at such an early age. To use music not just as an aesthetic experience, but as a tool, as a way to transform, the power of music to heal, to touch people, to tell a story, and to use it as a medium to raise funds and philanthropic efforts as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
Shout out to your parents.
They're the real ones. They're the real ones.
For real.
Yeah.
And I love that they didn't discourage you from pursuing this as something that you're also passionate about and that you care about, that they really help build a positive relationship to music and music as an expression, but also this tool for change.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was very early in my life ingrained in me. And it's nice to be able to talk to them about, even now with my creative projects, all these ideas and how to, elevate it, make it more meaningful in certain ways. And it's always comes back to using the power of music for more than just entertainment purposes. There's actual substance here.
Yes.
So mold that and to use it in an effective way. I'm all about it. Yeah.
Who were some of your early teachers, mentors along your path? In
music or in general?
In music, sure, but also I think because what you're writing about is expressing also your life.
Yeah.
There's also people in your life that have helped shape that.
Yeah, I mean, my parents, of course, they're the first people who kind of exposed me and showed me through action what that looked like. Everything, their actions really were consistent with their words. And growing up, my sister and I mean, we're so oriented to making everything intentional and purposeful and meaningful, not just for ourselves, but for our communities around us, because that's what they did. They did that in the Philippines before they immigrated here. They were really heavily rooted in their communities, and it radiated outward the energy to help the communities and to be part of the community in a meaningful way. And so that was just ingrained in us in such a young age that it's just part of who I am now, and I'm really proud that that's a part of who I am. Early my piano teacher, Gloria Cristobal, I didn't love piano lessons at the beginning growing up, as many kids do when they're put into a room and are you have to practice.
I quit too early.
It's sometimes you really realize early that it's this is not for me. But sometimes I didn't know that it was for me. And so my piano teacher, what was nice about it is we did the whole classical training route. But at some point she saw that I started composing and started mixing things up. And her dad was a world-renowned performer, composer, pianist, and started introducing these compositions that he had written, and was really encouraging. He was she was telling me that her dad used to write and compose on napkins because they didn't have, they didn't have, when he didn't have access to paper, and they obviously didn't have computers in the 60s or the 70s. He was writing down notation on napkins.
Wow.
And composing. And that to me was so inspirational. So she started, teaching me improvisation and other aspects that are not so rigid and classically trained in that paradigm. So she was a really early influence in that realm, for sure. Hundreds of people in my life I could point to. A lot of my educators, now that I teach at UBC now, I teach undergrad psychology at UBC.
Cool.
And now I have a huge respect for educators who really care to be there and care to foster growth in their students. I try to do that for my students. But a lot of educators growing up from elementary to high school were integral. They just gave me the courage and this feeling that helped me know that I actually had something worth sharing. And I think every single person has that thing. And it's a matter of, crafting that and building it and letting that grow. That's really important. And I really have a big appreciation for all the educators that gave me that push.
When did you decide you weren't going to pick a lane? And why did you put that in your bio?
Well, truthfully, it was a kind of I felt there was a point in my life where there was an ultimatum that I had to choose. I was applying for university, because I come from a family that really values education. And I knew that I was going to do some kind of degree, but I didn't know what in. I loved science, I loved music, so I applied for music school and I applied for a science school. And I got in both. And I wasn't expecting to get into the music school. Yeah. So this was a really tough thing for me to kind of navigate.
Was it a music school here?
It was Berkeley in Boston. I don't know. I was like a 17-year-old kid who was like, wow, Boston, like the States, like this is where opportunities are.
Music history.
Music, and it was such an amazing prospect that I didn't even know that I had. I applied to UBC here because I knew it was an excellent school. I didn't have to go far. It was a time of my life where I really was still finding myself and wanted to be grounded in community. So at that point, I was like, I have to choose between music or science. Like I couldn't be both, And through that decision-making process, I ultimately decided to stay in the city and pursue science. What was really amazing that I found was that obviously music was a part of me, and I wasn't going to just stop doing it because I wasn't studying it.
Yeah.
So I just kept doing it. I kept writing. I kept being involved in the musical that we had written. I kept, being really interested in that realm. And I just was like, well, I don't need a degree to keep doing it. A lot of like my favorite musicians don't have a degree in music, and it doesn't, you don't need to have that. I realized that the benefit of going to music school was the connections that you make at the music school, because of course you're getting the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
But I've met such amazing people through just social media, like through the internet, that came from Berkeley, that didn't come from Berkeley, that have music backgrounds, that don't have music backgrounds. And so through this time, I was kind of going in between. I was like doing the science thing and like really learning more about, my first year, I took a psychology class, fell in love, got hooked. I was like, what's happening in this brain of ours? And then I would keep doing music and I would write music. And then at some point, I was like, well, what happens to our brains when we listen to music? Like, why is music so powerful? Why is it that, I listen to a song, it can bring me to tears. And for the same song, in a different context, it will make me feel euphoric and excited and like free. And so these kind of these two worlds, I realized could just inform each other. And they continue to inform each other. So that's when I realized, well, I'm just going to, find a combination. Like I'm going to try to see if there is something in between. I didn't know what that was, but I came to this realization of like research. There's a lot of people who ask these same questions and understand what happens in our brains when we listen to music and how it interacts with our psychology, with our memories, with our emotions. I just kept going down that route, and here I am, like 5 years into a PhD, and it's what wakes me up in the morning. It's what gets me giddy at night, what keeps me up at night, and I feel like there's a lot of power in this not choosing a lane, right?
Yes.
Not feeling prescribed to one thing or another,
Yes.
but to find a way. I know that's a privileged take too, honestly. Like a lot of people have to do one thing because you gotta, do what you gotta do. And I feel extremely privileged, extremely blessed to be able to have combined the two, to have the space to combine the two and to be able to pursue something that I'm super passionate about.
What are you actually studying in your PhD, and can you break it down in a way we can understand?
Totally. So essentially, my thesis project, like the big question that I have, what happens in the brains of people with Parkinson's when they listen to music? Specifically, can we increase motivation and reduce apathy in Parkinson's, like the lack of motivation? It turns out that a lot of people with Parkinson's disease, Michael J. Fox, famous actor from Burnaby, who has Parkinson's disease, it's really characterized by tremor and motor symptoms.
Right, because what's actually happening when you have Parkinson's?
There's a depletion of dopamine. It's like it's the same molecule, it's the same chemical that helps us process motivation. So it turns out that in people with Parkinson's, it's like this chemical that is depleted that we don't have a lot of. It affects a lot of the motor symptoms, but it also affects things like motivation. So we see a lot of people in Parkinson's who have the motor symptoms, but also have this like cyclical effect that they also lose motivation. And when you have a disease state that's like Parkinson's, it can be debilitating, it can be discouraging. And so there's this cycle of, you know, being apathetic and having the motor symptoms. It makes the motor symptoms worse, then you feel worse, and then that's a harmful cycle for people with Parkinson's. And there's no drug that targets that in Parkinson's or in any other brain disorder. So my question is, we have lots of different things that we experience in the world. We have movies, we have music. Can we use these tools as like a supplementary? We're not going to replace drugs, but can we use it as a tool in our day-to-day lives that can help with motivation? We know music is emotional.
Yeah.
We go to the gym, we have our playlist, we listen to like Beyoncé or like heavy metal, whatever you listen to, it's like, that's our pump up music. We have our like crying music. We have music that we listen to and we're like, I want to be in my feels. I just broke up with someone or someone broke up with me. I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream and listen to Adele. Like we have, music is a tool, right? It's a functional tool. So why can't we use music as a functional tool to help people with neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's? So my whole research question aims to kind of look at that. I'm scanning people's brains with Parkinson's, and we're doing an intervention with them. We're giving them music, we're giving them podcasts, we're giving them different types of like sound auditory stimuli for different participants, and we want to see if there's a difference, right? We want to see if music is special.
That's so cool.
And
so what are you seeing in the brain scans?
Well, you're seeing like lights come up. This is the nice thing. This is the fun thing is essentially when we are doing anything, our brains are activated.
Right.
And so there are methods that we can use to scan people's brains while they're doing certain things. Like we basically present them with different musical excerpts while they're in the scanner, and we can literally see different parts of their brain lighting up. And so we can say, well, this category of music lights up these parts of the brain, this category of music lights these parts of the brain. And then we can compare pre and post this intervention. We can say, well, by listening to music, the brain has changed. We've created new pathways, we've created new connectivities. And we know that kind of thing, sorry, the hummus is kind of coming up again. We know that that's probably a bad idea to like do this whole thing, but we know from research that music does work, that music does help us. The big question mark is like how does it do that? So I'm looking into the brain to answer those questions. I'm trying to see, well, what's happening in the brain? How can we take that knowledge and then use that knowledge to make targeted interventions? Like is it specific types of music? Is it like the qualities of music? Does this only work for Western settings versus Eastern music because it's very different? Hundreds of questions, but I digress.
And you are scientific methoding it.
We're scientific. It's like Brad McKnight. It's like 1, you're like a dream come true. 2, scan the brain. 3, what happens? You know. I'm joking. But there's steps to it. It's methodical. It's a beautiful thing. Art and science coming together.
One of the things that I found really fascinating to learn about was that when we listen to music together, the same parts of our brain fire off, and how we can experience this word entrainment. I love this word entrainment, where we sync to a beat, where our like literal like motor parts of our brain sync to what we're listening to, and you just find all of us are just tapping at the same time, and all of this applies to me when I think about being in a space dancing together, and that music has this power to be able to co-regulate all of us and put us all in the same wavelength. Another thing I also found really fascinating was like, why is it, because you mentioned this earlier, that like we have such a strong link in our brains when it comes to memories and music? Why is it that when you said Brian McKnight, I was like, you're like a dream come true, and it just came right away.
And then you remembered the embarrassing moment, right? Like it's tied to all of that. That's like a natural thing.
Can you tell us more about that, or what do you know more about like memory specifically linked to?
Well, I also want to talk about the movement piece too, because I think it's all intertwined, right? In we call them regions of interest in the brain. That when we create a question or a hypothesis, we look into these regions. I'm looking at, for Parkinson's, the motor region, the auditory region, of course, so like processing sound, and the reward centers of the brain, right? So all of them kind of inform each other. They're all connected. On the movement piece, it's really interesting that you bring up entrainment and things like that. A lot of the research that's coming out with music and Parkinson's is to use some like rhythm to actually align the walking patterns of people with Parkinson's. Because people with Parkinson's, there's rigidity, right? There's motor symptoms that go on. And one of those things is, some people with Parkinson's can't even coordinate their walking movements. So there's a little bit more of like a shuffling or more weight on one foot than the other. So there's been a lot of research that's shown that just providing a steady beat external to your body for people with Parkinson's can actually help Parkinson's patients, people with Parkinson's, smoothen out their gait. They actually will go from like something that's uneven to something that is within the rhythm of the time of the music that they're listening to.
That's so cool.
So there is something, there's something to that. And then when you talk about dance, there's research coming out of music, Parkinson's, and dance right now, which is like the benefit of music and the benefit of movement and how that also helps people. So I wanted to mention that because I think for your interest as well, it's like it feels like there's a lot of work that's coming out of that. As for the memory piece, this is what really got me interested in this whole realm. Have you watched Coco, the movie?
No, but so many people have said it's wonderful.
I don't want to spoil it, but first of all, it wrecked me. My legal name is Miguel. The main character's name is Miguel. It's about music. It's about memory. There's this idea in the movie that music can bring back memories of people with Alzheimer's disease, people who have had the parts of their brain that is actually withering away that's really important for forming memories. Even people with Alzheimer's can use music as a tool to bring back memories. And the kind of, it's still being discovered what the mechanism is, but it really, the leading hypothesis, the thoughts around it, is this idea that music is emotional. The things that we remember the most, and this is supported by a lot of research, are emotional things. When we think about flashbulb memories, we think about, what happened when Kobe died, or where we were when COVID started, we feel like we can remember them like it was yesterday because it was inherently such an emotional thing. Music is emotional. So when we tie an earlier parts of our life with like music with our certain memories, like Brian McKnight with meeting Brian McKnight, that sticks with us, right? It's an emotional thing. It's an emotional moment. We remember how we felt then. That changes too. Like our memories are not videos. They are always forming. They're always changing. Every time we bring up a memory, we're constructing it. It's changing. So the same as with music, right? When we listen to a piece of music, it can feel really awesome now. Like, let's say it's like, this is my song with me and this girl that I'm dating, right? And then you break up and you listen to the song and it's like, wow, this is the saddest song of all time. It's
interesting. A new association.
It's a new association. And it's all to do with, what we think is because music is emotional. Music is really deeply emotional. And if it has emotional ties to it, that's something that you tend to remember later on. Even when other parts of your brain that are helpful for recalling memories wither away, these cues, these really solid memories that are tied to music, for instance, kind of remain.
I found it super fascinating to learn more about neuroplasticity and how it's actually good for our brains to be in the act of learning music, like learning how to play an instrument, musical training, how it reshapes the brain, that our auditory motor networks, the cerebellum, and their connections show that learning and playing an instrument isn't just, gratifying, it feels good, but it keeps the brain flexible and healthy.
I love you've done your research.
That was my summer of live research.
Yeah.
Do you feel that at play in your own brain as a musician? Like, do you feel that?
I mean, I don't physically feel what is showing up in the scans, right? Like when you actually, it's really interesting that you say that because there's now new research where people can now play versions of instruments in the MRI scanner. Like you can't bring metal into that room, but now people have made like keyboards and cellos that are safe to go into the MRI scanner. And people, now we can see what happens when people are improvising versus like making rote music, like where the creativity comes in. music is said to be one of the only types of stimuli that actually lights up the whole brain. Like we have our motor systems, we have our reward systems, we have our emotional centers that are all engaged in acting in this concert, really, in our brains and in our bodies. So when I'm like creating music and I'm writing, I don't think about that, but I know what's going on. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for people to engage in the arts at every age.
We're actually almost up on our hour, but there's
Oh,
no
wow.
way we're gonna just end it without talking about this forthcoming debut album. And yeah, what can you tell us about it? When is it coming out? What's happening?
That's a great question.
You know?
Asking myself the same question. I don't want to give a particular timeline.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's still shifting, but it's really in its deep stages. And it is exploring the idea of the album. It's kind of a concept album in a way, but it's exploring this idea that very much reflects life, which is the idea of all or nothing, right? I feel like I'm a very all or nothing person. I either am fully focused doing this thing, making sure that I'm like putting my blood, sweat, and tears, not sleeping, not taking care of myself, or I'm completely backing off. I'm not doing anything. I don't have the energy or the willpower or the whatever to keep doing what I'm doing. And it's this interplay of these ideas of like, all of us are chasing something. We're, we have different motivators in life. And in my life, I've found that I've been chasing things and awards and accolades and maybe letters like behind my name and not necessarily always knowing why. Just chasing something relentlessly. And this idea of flipping it on its head when everything is still and you're only by yourself and you need to confront who you are, what you are doing, what is important, what is going to ground you back into the world around you, into the communities around you. So I'm really excited. We're pretty involved in the process. Again, I don't want to really name a particular timeline, but this is the first project front to back that I have I've put together. I'm working with an incredible producer in Vancouver, one of my best friends, Ben Millman.
Shout out to Ben Millman.
Shout out Ben Millman. He's worked with Tiny Habits. He's worked with Katie Tupper, huge Canadian R&B voice. Marie Dresselheis, another amazing, amazing local artist. And it feels like a project I'm like bringing my community, my people up with me and living the life that is depicted in the album. It feels all very holistic and I'm just really, it feels very cathartic to make this. So the plan really is to drop 2 babies this year. It's to have the thesis and to have the album drop semi close to each other.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's ambitious.
Yeah, we've been cooking.
Yeah.
We've been cooking.
We are coming up on our hour, but I am not going to let you leave without a rapid fire fun round of questions.
Man, my brain is so unwrapped right now, but let's do it.
First album or song that you ever fell in love with?
Oh, How Deep Is Your Love? Bee Gees.
How deep is your
Slash PJ
love?
Morton.
How deep? That's my mom's favorite song.
So good.
actually.
Artist you'd secretly love to write for?
I could never, but Leon Thomas.
Hey, don't hold yourself
I mean, no,
back.
he's such a good writer himself.
Right.
I mean, I could be in the room. I'll let me be in the room.
Yeah.
Leon Thomas.
You're like, I'll be his muse. I'll just be there like this.
Yeah, that's right.
Artist you'd love to study in a brain scanner?
Jacob Collier.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't understand his brain, and it's like, I feel like it would just, the machine would just blow up.
That actually would be pretty sick.
Yeah. I've had this thought. Actually, that's really crazy you asked that, because I've had this thought for a while. And I'm like, how do I get Jacob Collier into an MRI scanner? That's to be determined.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
If your PhD had a soundtrack, what genre is it?
Like right now, like metal.
Okay.
Screaming with a lot of passion and emotion. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Instrument you wish you mastered?
Violin.
Ooh. Local artist you are stoked on right now that everyone needs to know about?
Marie Dresselheis. No blinking, no thinking. Incredible singer-songwriter. Like, just will tear your heart to pieces with her words and with her like melodic choices. Just amazing.
I love that. I love that you said melodic choices.
Yeah.
One word for where you're at creatively right now.
Excited. Yeah.
That's a good place
Ecstatic.
to be.
Yeah.
Okay, now my last one. For 2026, year of the horse, fire horse, who I'm stepping into or who I'm becoming is?
A person who's returning back to who he was. That sounds like really deep, but it's really, I'm trying to get back to the things that I used to reject as part of who I am and really embrace those parts.
Like
and
what?
Just like, I think I'm a natural, like, I'm a very expressive. A lot of people are like, your face is so expressive. You're like, you can, from this interview, like, I can't contain my joy. And I used to really contain that for a long time, and because I wanted to fit in and whatever. But I just whatever. Just like feel what you feel, you know. Some people, I like being mysterious is overrated. I think it's whatever. People have that brand, and like, if that's them, right? Yeah. I'm returning back to like a joyous, expression-filled, theater kid person, who just like wants to just love and appreciate life.
I'm so appreciative of this conversation and this time learning more about your musical upbringing, your journey, what you're excited for, who you're stepping into, and also all the nerdy brain neuroscience stuff. Which we will continue.
Yeah.
I want to give a big shout outs to everyone who's tuned in on the live stream. I see we've got some comments on there for all y'all who tuned in. Really appreciate you. And to anyone else who's watching this on the replay. Also want to give a big shout outs to TELUS STORYHIVE for powering today's episode. If you are an artist, a creative, a chef, a musician who's based here in Vancouver, and you have a story to share, you're somebody who I should definitely interview. If you look on the corner of the screen, there will be a QR code on the edited version of this video. You can scan that. There's a form there, fill it out. And who knows, maybe you will sit next to me and we will be eating all the lovely snacks and having all the lovely chats. Once again, my name is Kazi. This is Mikey Jose. Find him on the internet at
Mikey Jose.
That's
everywhere.
Everywhere, streaming everywhere. And check out the music videos. Ay nako. Check out the live performance video, Biting My Tongue.
Check out my Rate My Prof. Put some fake reviews in there. Bump up my score. Let's get my classes filled up.
That's it. He doesn't choose a lane, y'all. This is for his academic lane as well, okay? Yeah. But yes, thank you again. This is StoryHive on Location Vancouver with Beats, Eats, and more.